Hey everybody, Robert Douglas here. I'm the maintainer and builder of Spec Kitty. Spec Kitty is a fork of Spec Kit. Spec Kit and Spec Kitty both believe in the power of spec-driven development when using agentic coders like Claude Code, Codex, the Gemini CLI, Cursor, and other AI-driven programming tools like that. So I've been posting about Spec Kitty for a few weeks and promising a video, and this is going to be the video. I have literally never live streamed on YouTube before, so excuse me if I botch some things on this. And it's also going to be probably a fairly long video because I intend to do a complete feature workthrough. So a whole run through of Spec Kitty, even the installation and the initialization and setup, and then the coding session itself. So I've got a rough plan in my mind. Let me start sharing my screen, and we're just going to get going. So we're going to share the entire screen up here. Ta-da. I just cut a new release of Spec Kitty. We're talking about Spec Kitty 0.5.3. You can grab it yourself with pip install Spec Kitty CLI. Or you can get it from the GitHub repository here on Priivacy with two I's, AI, Priivacy-AI, Spec Kitty. Feel free to star the repository if you like it by the end of the session. So since I just cut a new release, we're going to have to install that release. And I sure hope that I'm live streaming right and that you can see everything. I'll make things nice and big for you. Let's see what we've got here now. Okay, I'm going to pip uninstall that. You don't have to do that when you can use the upgrade flag and manage it with pip like you normally would. I'm a little extra careful when I'm doing this because I also test the code that I'm developing locally and install it with pip install E. So I never know where the codes come from, and I just like to clean it up. So let's now install that. Spec Kitty CLI, and make sure that we're on the 0.5.3 version. No, it didn't. Let's force it to upgrade. I have to admit, I am not such an accomplished pip user, but that seems to have done it. So the upgrade flag did it, and we're now on 0.5.3. Now let's make sure that I'm in my code directory. I think that I've made the directory for this, Priivacy compiler. Yes. All right. So let me talk to you just a bit about the project so you have an understanding where we're going, and then I'll tell you how Spec Kitty is going to get us there. The project is that I have another project called Priivacy-Rust, which is basically a private an information detector. It's like Microsoft Presidio, if you're familiar with that. Only it runs as a Rust compiled binary, and it detects things like email addresses, social security numbers, telephone numbers, person names, etc. And it's too big for any one use case. I want to be able to compile that project into smaller binaries for the purpose of whatever I'm doing at the time. For example, if I'm in the United States, I don't really need the recognizer for Korean health cards. And if I'm doing Latin names, I don't need to recognize Cyrillic names or kanji, for example. So the Rust binary that gets compiled now is actually it's become quite massive because I've taken a maximalist approach to building recognizers. I can recognize lots of things, but now I need to be able to break it down and feature flag the things in the Rust binary so that I can only detect so I get a binary that only detects a certain number of stuff. So what we're going to build is the CLI tool that manages the compilation project of another tool. And it's nice because it's a greenfield project. No, where am I? I thought I did that already. Right, it's a greenfield project. We're in an empty directory. Let's also get a VS Code window in this directory. So, and we're going to call it Privacy Compiler. Right, absolutely nothing in here, and we'll probably do a lot of work in this terminal. In fact, I'm gonna start working here. I think it's easier to follow along if we see everything appearing in VS Code. So the first thing we need to do, since we have Spec Kitty installed, I'm just going to double check. Okay, we're going to do Spec Kitty init here. Now, what this does for us is it's going to set up all of the / commands and scripts that are needed for Claude Code Cursor and Opencode. Those are the three I'm going to use to Claude Code, Codex, and Opencode. I'm not going to use Cursor to do their development workflows here. So I'm going to put those there. It asks me, it could detect that. I think that is a feature request that I'm going to put into my brain for Spec Kitty later. It should detect whether it's a POSIX shell or a PowerShell, really. Come on. And this is the mission. Our mission now is software development, but it could be a research mission, and you can write your own missions that could do like SEO analysis of a website, or I don't know. I've got to think about the missions, but the two that I've got here are software development research. And as you can see over here, that made a dot directory for Claude, Codex, Opencode, according to what they need. So these are the / commands that I've got. Made a Kitify directory, which is basically the source of truth for those things. And it's also very important, the tracking of the active mission, and also the information about the dashboard that I've got running. So this is kind of like a semaphore for the running dashboard. I can open that dashboard here. I can double click it here, or I could say Spec Kitty dashboard. And then we get to see this for the first time. It's the dashboard. It's completely empty because we haven't really done anything yet. So then what I'm going to go do, I've prepped this by grabbing a bit of a prompt already, following some conversation with ChatGPT on what this thing should do. So instead of like having to talk through ad infinitum in front of y'all, I'm going to grab that. And then this is an important moment. We've done the Spec Kitty init. I've got the dashboard. Let me just show you what other commands there are. Well, that wouldn't work. So I think validate tasks and verify setup would be useful. These validate commands are pretty useful. These commands actually are misnomers. Another bug for my mind is that these shouldn't be here, because what should be here is the instruction that now everything moves into the coding agent. And I think I've tried to fix that up in the documentation if you go look at it, but there's a conceptual jump that you have to make, is that you init your Spec Kitty project from the command line, but then you go directly into something like a Claude session after that. All right, so now I'm in Claude Code, and if I do the /, you can see that I've got a bunch of Spec Kitty / commands. They're not in order, so here I could put 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3 in front of them, but I haven't. Instead, the idea is that you start with if you start with the Constitution, really, let's do the whole thing. So think of the Constitution as your Claude MD file or your cursor rules, where you put the things in place that are really important to you as a software developer that your agent's always going to follow. That's going to be stored in this memory here. And you can also watch along here. This should appear as we go along. It's not there now because we haven't done it yet. Oops, let's get rid of that. We're not going to use that. All right, so let's answer the question. So one of the things that Spec Kitty does is it always will ask you questions when it doesn't know. And you can see I just started the Constitution command without any guidance whatsoever. So it's natural that it's going to ask me. So it's a private. What's the primary purpose of the Privacy Compiler project? We're going to say that it is meant to compile the privacy Rust project with feature flags and compile targets, like whether it's going to be a Rust binary or a Python wheel or a WASM container. Yeah. How many core principles should the Constitution have? I'm just going to say 3 because, like, honestly, I don't have a lot to say about the Constitution. A lot of people really like to enforce some coding styles. We're going to do test-driven development. We're going to do all sorts of things. This is your chance, people. For those people who like that, let's do it. I like to get started and see how it's going and course correct if I see something that I don't like. Oh, and he even gives us some suggestions. Very nice. TDD, strictly enforced. Test coverage required. So it's asking testing discipline. Yeah, I really like the integration test end-to-end. What architectural pattern should govern feature development? Everything starts as a library exposed via CLI, microservice, monolithic. Oh gosh. I like the library first, but I mean, this is honestly overkill. I don't even want to make a decision on that. Skip that. All right, so it's going to write a Constitution. This is something that came directly from Spec Kit. I have to be a little bit honest that I've barely used the Constitution other than course correcting in all of my Spec Kitty development. And I'd like to hear your feedback if you've used Spec Kit and done the Constitution bit, et cetera, or when you get to read it in just a minute, what you think of it. What are the 3 non-negotiable principles for this project? Oh, this is coming from Claude's memory. I hate their fallback mechanisms. I definitely like to fail intentionally. Feature flags, yes, okay. I'm not even sure we're going to use feature flags, but maybe that is the way. Build reproducibility. I think this is very important for the project, so I'm going to choose that. What quality gates are mandatory before code can be merged? Well, all tests have to pass. Oh, this is definitely coming from Claude memory at this point. I don't know, like maybe my own Claude MD at the root level. Docker cache has killed me over and over and over again. I don't even think we're going to use Docker for this, but let's choose it. Okay, we're going to get our Constitution now, I believe. Yeah. So it's going to read the templates and move it into the right place. And if the server's running correctly, sometimes I have my doubts, then we're going to see the Constitution here without me having to refresh. The servers are very basic. It's doing a 1-second pull to read the file directories, the files in your directory that are relevant to this dashboard. And there are no actions, there are no forms you submit on this dashboard. It's just a dashboard. Let's watch. Okay, it's done it. I'm going to refresh because I don't see it. Okay, there's a bug. Well, I told you I haven't done the Constitution. Let's keep going. If there are other bugs, then I'm just going to wither in embarrassment and go away. But that bug I can kind of live with. I'm just going to figure out why it's not looking in the right place for the Constitution. Let's move on. If we can read it here, and this would in normal times appear in the dashboard. So really, this is not so long and wasn't too painful overall. We can now move on. Right, now to the main first activity, the other first activity. The other first activity when you get into Claude Code with Spec Kitty is to specify. This is maybe arguably the most important thing. So I've just pasted that prompt that I shared, that I showed you briefly from ChatGPT. I'm not going to talk you through it all. Okay, I've got a bunch of requirements that I thought about and had a good conversation with. And now what Claude's going to do here is it's going to ask me for any further clarifications. It's kind of forced to. I make it ask discovery questions, but this is super useful. So we're going to really do it and we're going to really pay attention. Discovery question 1, build, scope, and priority. You've outlined a comprehensive compiler CLI with multiple targets. For the initial implementation, which build targets are priority 1? Yeah, let's focus on WASM. And it's got an also there. Should the MVP include any Nomad integration, or is this purely deferred? Defer Nomad. All right, so that's a great clarification of my spec. What's this next question going to be? Content addressable storage scope. The spec mentions content addressable builds with hash-based artifacts and an optional S3 R2 upload. For the MP3, what's the caching storage strategy? Local only caching, definitely. I don't want to get into the S3 R2 business yet. I want to see the compiler working on my Rust code base, which is probably going to cause me all sorts of refactoring of the Rust code base. And I want to see that the compiler has the right API, and then build out from there. The content addressability of it is further out in the business plan, so I'm going to say local only caching. I didn't answer the other questions here. When you say data set references, local paths, let's go up and finish answering that. Local paths for remote object storage URIs. Are data sets always local files in the NP? Yeah, they're going to be always local files for the MVP. And I'm going to actually answer the other question at the same time to not confuse Claude. Being a good communicator here. Discovery question 3, configuration model and build inputs. The CLI needs to accept recognizer set, built-in custom, and data set references, yes, to produce deterministic builds. How does the CLI receive this configuration? Is there a config file required? Are there CLI flags? Let's run with CLI flags for now. That's good enough for MVP. And then there's another related question here. For custom recognizers, Does the MVP need to support custom pattern files, plugins loaded at build time? Yes, eventually. Build time custom Rust modules need to be supported. Yeah. So I'm probably going to end up pruning the scope no matter what Claude's coming up with. Let's take a look here. The MVP scope, WASM target only, local data set, local artifact cache, built-in recognizer selection, deferred, good. No, okay. No, actually, it got the scope completely right. Yes, this is good. Ta-da-pa-da. So Claude's going to go now and build the specification. What is the specification? It's the set of user stories and acceptance criteria to describe what we're doing here. And now it's built this work trees directory, and I expect that the dashboard's going to start working at this point. And that's an interesting order of operations that I have to think about for Spec Kitty development, but let's go check. Right. So here's the overview now. We haven't done any of these. Interesting that it says, oh, checklists is just the icon for checklists. The status of it is not created. I found that confusing. So we've done the specify bit. It's moved the template into place. This is just the template still. It's created a feature work tree, but it hasn't written the specification file. So let's use this time to explain the work tree. And this is like, honestly, where it's at right now is a 20% solution. It's not actually either what I wanted to implement precisely or a really full solution, but it's better than the alternative, in my opinion, which was to tell the agents to work on their own branches, or for me to manage the branches myself. So if we look at our repository here, we don't have any code in here at all yet. What I've done is I've made sure that for following Spec Kitty protocol, all the work is done on work trees. But the model here is one work tree per feature. And this feature that we're doing is the Priivacy Compiler CLI that it's specifying right now. What I had wanted to achieve with this, which I have failed, was basically a work tree per agent, but that turned out really complicated and I backed off from it for the moment. A work tree per agent would let the agents run completely without inhibiting each other. Like you could have them do conflicting things on different work trees and then sort it out in the merge later. You could even like do 5 work trees and throw the 4 away that you just didn't want to use, etc. By having one work tree per feature, you basically transport the stepping on the toes problem to the work tree, which protects your main code base, which is nice. And the work trees are tied to a main code base branch. So there is a lot of flexibility there, but it's also some complexity that kind of tempers the utility of the flexibility. I'm going to keep it like this for a while because it works and it does have a level of isolation of where the agents are working. They're not working on the code in the main directory. They're working on the work tree. And if I don't like the work tree, I can just delete the entire work tree as a directory and it's basically gone. I probably have to clean up Git, but you know, it's easy. All right. Anyway, enough of that. Let's look at our, and look at the automatic updates are not working on this. I have to refresh. It's a bug for me to fix, but y'all can refresh this page if you need to until I fix it. So here's a specification. I'm going to take a time to read it now because if this specification is wrong, my software is going to be wrong, and I really care about this software. So let's see. The user story number 1 is deterministic WASM build. DevOps engineer needs to compile a PII detection engine with specific recognizers and datasets into a WASM module for Cloudflare workers deployment. When they run the build twice with identical inputs, they get the exact same artifact hash, proving reproducibility and enabling content addressable caching. That should be fairly easy to achieve, and it's a good goal. Okay, and here are the acceptance scenarios. I'm scanning them, and I like them. User story number 2, flexible configuration. A security engineer maintains multiple PII detection configurations, production staging in YAML files. They need to build each configuration reliably and occasionally override specific settings via command line flags without modifying the config file. Files. I don't understand this user story, and I'm going to tell Claude that. I don't really understand user story 2. Why do we need that in the spec? The example with the YAML files seems contrived and not how I'm going to do it. Okay, here comes, you're absolutely right. Bet you anything. Thinking. 15 seconds. Sometimes I also think for 15 seconds. You're absolutely right to question this. I may have misunderstood your earlier answer. Looking back at the discovery question 3, you answered C, CLI flags. Maybe I made a mistake, but it sounds like you actually want pure CLI. Yes. See, I made a mistake. Claude did exactly what I asked for. I asked for the wrong thing. So clarification, should the CLI work like this? Pure CLI with flags, blah, 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 looks good. Or option B, compile. Yeah, we're going to go for option A for now. This is why you read your specs, folks. Not because the AI is stupid, but because I'm stupid. Okay, it's going to update that. I'm going to read the rest of them while it's doing it. User story 3, build transparency and inspection. Yes, it's very important that the engineer can see easily what the compiled detector does, because there are an arbitrary number of them. And you wouldn't want to use the wrong one in production. You have to be able to inspect an artifact hash and retrieve its complete build manifest without recompiling. I wonder how it's going to do that. Displays the manifest. When an artifacts directory with multiple builds, when the engineer lists artifacts, then all available hashes are displayed with summary metadata, timestamp, target size. Okay, and I have to question Claude about this too. This is really close to what I want, but I'm not quite sure that that's the user experience that I want that's described. So let's wait till Claude's done here. And I hope that what you're seeing in this is not that Claude's stupid or I'm a bad software engineer. although both of those might be true. I hope what you're seeing is that thinking about a product that you're building is very complicated and has lots of levels. And this process exposes those complexities. I hadn't thought about exactly how I should be able to prove that an artifact was made with a specific number of inputs. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that this is the pattern that I want. Inspect hash. I mean, what's inspect is that's, I guess that's like the CLI command, and the topic or the command is inspect, and then the the argument is the hash. So, right, let's discuss this one. Why would we CLI? Why would we want Privacy Compiler inspect hash instead of how can I express this? Compiled binary inspect. I.e., why not ask the binary for its manifest? How would we get the manifest in your proposal? Where is it stored? Take the time to explain your original thinking, because I don't understand it yet. I need to, and I don't yet know myself what the best way is. I have to be that self-doubting in front of Claude, or it sycophants me into whatever I just proposed, even though I'm wishy-washy on the idea myself. So I haven't fully thought through this, and Claude is helping me. But if I don't indicate to Claude that it's now helping me make a decision, it'll assume that I'm correcting it and say, you're absolutely right, let's do it the other way. And then we've blindly made a decision with LLM confidence leading the way that I might regret later. I need to really understand what Claude means here, and I don't yet. Okay. So, excellent question. You've identified a key architectural decision that I didn't think through deeply enough. Oh, you didn't think through it either, Claude? Well, if neither of us are thinking through it deeply enough, then this isn't going to turn out very well. So let's get down to it. Let me explain my original thinking and then explore the alternatives. The original thinking, separate manifest JSON. I envision this flow. Privacy compiler build with stuff, and then you get artifacts, detector wasm, manifest. Okay, in a directory, which could be zipped up. The inspector command would work like this: privacy compiler inspect. Yeah, but where does that hash come from? Why I thought this simple to implement, just write JSON to disk during the build, easy to inspect, no WASM runtime needed. Oh, okay. I see the problem with my suggestion is that if you're going to compile the manifest into it, you'd have to compile it twice. And in fact, compiling the manifest into it would change the hash. So you'd get into an endless loop of trying to update the binary itself with its manifest, because you can only get the hash of the binary after you've compiled it. Okay, I think I understand why Claude suggested it that way. Yeah, and this is the problem I've identified. When you deploy detector WASM to Cloudflare workers, the manifest JSON stays behind. You deploy the binary is not self-describing. You need to access the build artifacts directory to inspect. The manifest can get separated from the library. Your alternative, self-describing binary. Embedded in the WASM binary itself. Yeah, I think this is what I need. Yes, that's what I described. I think that's what I need. Now, how does it solve that problem that I just described? Self-confined, deployment-friendly, can't get out of sync, simpler, runtime. Challenges, runtime required needs. WASM runtime to inspect, can't just cat manifest. Embedding complexity needs to embed data at compile time, right? Binary size, okay, minimum. We could do both. Do you think we could? How do we solve? And I actually have to read these questions. We could do both. Embed manifest in WASM. Okay, that's different than the compiled binary. That's a secondary step after the original manifest had been created. Also write manifest to disk. I think both might be the answer. Where do you care about the inspection most? Build time? Checking cached artifacts? No. Runtime. One. Now I have to add. Well, let's see how it goes on. Maybe it's a solvable problem in Rust. Here are the main approaches. Simplest to most sophisticated. Simple one. Rust's script run. Generate the manifest. Write it to a temp file. Invoke a cargo build. Okay. Pros, standard retro, well documented. Okay, I don't know what that means. The privacy Rust, and it's spelling privacy, which is wrong, which is driving me nuts, but we'll fix that. Create to cooperate. Include string exclamation mark with generated file. Simpler. Writes a manifest to a known location before building. Privacy Rust includes it. Very simple. Hard-coded path. Okay, that could break. So it's convention-based. Option 3, WASM custom selection, most elegant. I like elegant. He really knows how to talk my language here. WASM binary support custom sections, metadata that doesn't affect execution. Privacy compiler could build WASM normally, no manifest, post-process WASM to inject custom section with manifest, use tools like WASM tools or direct binary manipulation. Oof. Manifest not in Rust code at all. I don't like this one because WASM's not my only target. Oh, there's another option. Compile time code generation. I like number 4. It's recommending number 3. I like number 4. So we've broken the specification-driven development workflow a little bit, people, and I have to talk about that. I'm not upset about it. I'm not going to back off on it, but the user stories were meant to be the what. What do we want to accomplish? Not the how. And we've devolved into a discussion about the how. It's going to be fine. This is not the territory for being a purist. This is the territory for being a pragmatic problem solver. And that's what we're doing here. Perfect. Option 4 is clean and straightforward. So the flow would be, yeah, compute the manifest, generate the manifest, write it to the source tree. Yeah, okay. So Now that we know the Wasm binary will be self-describing, how do you want inspection to work in practice? This is still important, so I'm going to answer it. Inspect the Wasm file directly. Inspect by hash. I think it has to be both. C. And regarding the option for that, it must be noted that this eventually needs to be isolated per tenant, i.e. many customers all compiling at the same time. Note that, but not, it shouldn't greatly affect MVP. All right, we're making good progress in terms of defining my product. In terms of showing you Spec Kitty, we're stuck on the first step, but it's actually the value, people. Do the work, read what's written there, think into it. It's going to make you a better product. Okay, so it's updating that. We should be able to see that here. So it's doing all those are functional requirements. I haven't even shown those to you down here. Because we're still reading these hash computation verification, artifact management. A developer's local artifacts directory grow over time with multiple build variants. Clean up old or unused artifacts. I want to descope this. I don't really care about that. That was Claude being helpful, thinking about a feature that it would assume my product would need, and it might, but I'm not going to optimize for cleaning up disk space until I run out of disk space. I wonder if anybody's watching this. I'm going to go look. Whoa, hey, look at that. Well, I don't see anybody in chat, so let's get out of this mind-bending that mind-bending view. All right, please descope this. I didn't ask for that. Overkill for now. All right, now it has to reorder its functional requirements, unfortunately, but oh well, it's only going to take a few seconds. And then we can move on to the plan phase. So if we've done the specification phase now, and I'm pretty confident that we have, I'm going to read through the edge cases first. Then we're going to move on to the plan phase. So it's all over here. You can see what's done and what's not for the plan phase. And the plan phase is how we're going to do it. All right. This was supposed to be what we're going to do. And the document says that it should be functional. It's got the functional requirements. It's got the user stories. It's got the edge cases, the success criteria, the assumptions, what's out of scope, etc. It hasn't said at all how it's going to do it in any great detail. We had some conversations about that, and I expect to actually show up in the plan because Claude will still have those in its context window. If I were to open up a different agent, I would have to probably remind the agent of some of those conversations. So we're going to keep going on with the Claude that we've got. Let me read the edge cases real quickly to make sure I like them. Okay. These are great edge cases. Mostly, I don't want to think about them, so let's move on. All right, let's run. Yeah, exactly. Artifact cleanup. Just delete the files. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay, I could type here and give Claude instruction, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to run the Spec Kitty plan, which is the second step in this process, and it's going to ask me any questions now. It will, as I said, remember everything that we just talked about. It's going to move into the feature tree, or the work tree rather. So this is Spec Kitty in action here. These are the things that make Spec Kitty work well. I ran the thing and it saw what branch it was on, and it decided it had to move to the work tree to get this done. And now it's going to ask me these questions. It's read the spec again. Rust, privacy, Rust, engine integration. Okay, first of all, we are specifically talking about code privacy Rust. Note the spelling, and we can answer some of the questions by inspecting it. This is a tip for me to you, I guess. Sometimes, I haven't even read this, but sometimes Claude asks me questions where I kind of can describe the answer, but I know that if Claude were to just read the code, it would find a better answer than I would able to verbalize at that moment. So I tell it to go do that. And just because we're in the Privacy Compiler folder here doesn't mean Claude can't go read another project on my computer, because I've basically waived all permissions. And even if I hadn't, I could still give it a directory to look in. So it's better that it just goes and reads the source code that we're going to be compiling, and it can answer these questions itself. But let's read the question specifically now, precisely to see what else it has to say. The CLI needs to compile the Privacy Rust PII detection engine to properly architect the build system and manifest embedding. Where does Privacy Rust engine source code live? Well, okay. Yes, so that's where it lives. For now, the compiler should assume that that location will not change. In the future, it will likely be a Git URL or some other, or an environmental variable that answers the question, where is the code? Oh, it gave me some options that I didn't read. I should read those. Embedded as a workspace dependency. No, I don't like that. A sibling crate. Hey, all you Rust developers out there watching this right now, which is like literally zero, I understand that, but please brainwave me your opinion, is that a good idea to embed the source code of the main product? No, I don't think so. No. This compiler should be an actual tool, all compiled. Well, yeah, in a crate. Git submodule checkout, compile here, clones and checks out privacy Rust from Git. Okay, that would work. User provides path. I think all of those would work, but let's stub A and B and focus on C. No, I don't like D yet because, first of all, I don't understand it. Let's see here. Right. Here, Claude's going to go and actually look at what we're dealing with. All right. A cargo workspace with an engine recognizer datasets, WAS and bindings. Yep. This helps clarify the architecture for the MVP. The compiler will default to using that, except that if I wanted to change it, generate the manifest in the privacy Rust source tree before building, invoke cargo build. Okay. That point is not going to work in the long run. It's going to have to copy it or check it out, or we're going to have to copy it or check it out before we run this, but I think it's okay for now. The spec mentions build time selection of recognizers from a predefined set and data sets as local files. How should the compiler configure which recognizers and data sets compiled into the WASM binary? Cargo features use cargo feature flags. I think that's the answer. Let's see what the other answers are. Build time code generation, generate Rust code that imports. Configuration file in source? No. I think compare A and B. I want to know what Claude thinks about these two options. Sorry, people, that you're spending more time listening to me plan my product than you are seeing Spec Kitty working. But actually, I hope you think it's more interesting than a tic-tac-toe game, because that was the option. In my experience, depending on how big I pick, how much I choose to bite off and chew on in one session, this whole process takes anywhere from an hour and a half to all day. I'm going to hope that this one doesn't take all day. And if it does, I'm going to keep streaming and then give you a somewhat cut down version of the video as well. Let's see what we see. Okay. Cargo features. Approach. Okay, so you put them in the TOML file. Pros, standard Rust pattern. Cargo handles it natively. Clean separation. Cargo log precision. Feature explosion. 2 N combinations for N recognizers. Oh, well. Cargo features are additive. Can't disable once enabled in the dependency tree. I don't understand that. It requires upfront definition. Okay, there are a lot of cons in this list. Build time code generation. Privacy compiler generates before building. Infinite flexibility. Yes, that is also dangerous. Unified mechanism handles both recognition and data sets. Yeah. Content addressable. Generate code hash equals unique build. Customer. Okay. Non-standard. More magic, less familiar to rest devs. Requires cooperation. Okay. But we can cooperate. We have both repositories. Generated code in source tree. So, I mean, what's clear here is that every one of these is going to have to be ephemeral. We're going to have to check the main code out, then go into that directory and generate. Now it's up to 2 things that we're generating, because remember, we're also code generating the manifest data. Option B aligns better. I agree. I agree that option B is better. Also, we'll eventually move to ephemeral compile environments. So less worry about files in the source tree. Your git ignore comment. Okay. So this session has been particularly intense in the back and forth between me and Claude on the actual architectural decisions. Could I have had that conversation with Claude otherwise? Yes. This, however, is very nicely structured, and it works the same way every time I do it, and I'm familiar with it now because I've done it several times, and you can be too if you use Spec Kitty. And I would say that this level of iterative precision is going to lead to better software, and that it is a trait of Spec Kitty that's baked into the process, and that I hope that you lean into it as I'm doing here. All right. Spec mentions WASM as the target, and I see Privacy Rust already has bindings. Which WASM approach should we use? I'm thinking A is best, but what are my drawbacks if I choose that? I don't always understand the context or the implications of what these options are. And I find that Claude's quite good at discussing them with me. And this is the point in the agentic coding journey where I learn things. There's been lots of discussion online about, do agentic coders, vibe coders actually learn things? And I mean, I of course, I think it's yes. I mean, I do. It's a case of you get out of it what you put into it. I could just say yes at every one of these things, or say, Claude, you pick. You gave me 3 options. You pick the best one. I wouldn't even know what goes into it at that point. And then I wouldn't be able to describe my own software later. And I don't want that. And I don't learn anything. So, okay, this is the moment where I get to learn something. Let me read this. So that's a lot, but I'll read it and I'm going to learn. Extra artifacts you may not need. Okay, WASM pack. JS bindings, TypeScript definitions, but I want those. Wow, okay. So Cloudflare workers load WASM directly, and they're unused load. Okay. Large artifact directory, more files to manage cache, mitigation could delete, and we could delete them. Less build control. WASM pack wraps cargo with opinions about structure, naming, optimization. I also see that as a feature. Harder to customize flags or build processes. Impact, you might need specific optimizations. Don't even know what those are. Or custom build flags. You fight WASM pack's defaults. Yes, of course. Must be pinned. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Well, that's true. Installation dependencies. Who cares? Cloudflare workers mismatch. They have their own WASM binding system. So here comes the question, am I going to stick with Cloudflare workers? I think that I am, but I haven't ruled out Fastly, for example, or something else. Okay, when these drawbacks don't matter, 1 and 4. If you decide WASM bindings are useful, not a drawback, they might be. If WASM packs defaults are fine, I have no idea, but it's a standard thing. If you pin versions strictly, which you should anyway, manageable. One-time setup cost, ephemeral environments, bake it in. Okay. If WASM pack outputs, working workers worth testing, not an issue. And there's a quite open-ended question at the end. Yes, go research that. This is important. Claude's saying it's important. I believe it's important too. I really want to use Cloudflare workers or something that can execute WASM or deliver WASM to my clients. And I'm seeing that Claude thinks it's 2024. That's funny. Should I tell Claude that it's 2025? Then you're going to have to watch it, do these searches over and again. I bet it's going to find the answer. And if it was true in 2024, it probably hasn't changed that much in 2025. I'm going to tell Claude, P.S. It's 2025. Silly Claude. By the way, in case you're wondering, I'm using Sonnet 4.5 with the 1 million context tokens, which I can set here as part of Claude Code. All right, what do you got here? Noted it's 25. Research finding. Cloudflare workers and WASM based on current Cloudflare workers documentation. Fully supported raw WASM. Can import and use raw WASM directly. Great. Also supported WASM bind gen. Key differences for use case. String handling, type safety, raw WASM, manual, can't call from Rust, lower, just WASM, complexity lower. WASM pack, option A, automatic. WASM bind gen types instead of manual. Rust and call worker APIs. Oh, it actually looks like WASM pack's better, but there's higher complexity. WASM pack, option A. Okay, at this point, yes, WASM pack. This is a lot of planning. People of the world, I apologize. You probably didn't want to know this much about WASM and Cloudflare. And why should you know these things unless you're also building a privacy preserving firewall that's between your data and LLMs, which is what I'm doing. And if you're doing that, well, we should talk. So this approach, I'm scanning it very quickly because this is just what we talked about. Yes, go for it. Do the planning. Yay. And this is a good time for a bathroom break, people. It's going to take 2 or 3 minutes anyway, and I got to go. Be right back. Oh, hey, look at that. It finished. So, great. I'm a little confused. I think Claude has lost the thread in terms of Spec Kitty stuff, because there should be a plan here now. I thought we ran plan. All right. So this is a risk that in your spec kittying, the LLM talks to you about things so long that it forgets. Yes, do spec kitty plan with it. It forgot what it was doing. It focused so hard on planning that I forgot what it was doing. Now it's getting back to doing that. It has to get into the right directory and figure out where it is. What do you mean the active machine directory is missing? I need to tell it where to go. Sorry. So you're going to see there's a little bit of conflict in there's a little bit of conflict in this work tree setup, which is why I'm also a little bit suspicious of its long-term place in Spec Kitty. Go here, please, and continue with Spec Kitty plan. The LLMs get very confused by the work tree if you're not in the work tree when you start them. And what you're going to see me do when we get to the implementing phase is we're going to actually start the LLMs in different shells in the work tree, and then they won't get confused, which is nice. But if you think back to what we've done here, we started with an empty directory. The work tree wasn't there. And this session has the whole context of everything we've talked about so far, which is starting to be part of the problem. And after this planning phase, I'm not going to use this session to do any work. I'm going to leave the session open with all of its context because it has all of the information about the spec and the plan. And then I can ask it questions that are important about understanding those, like how did we get to where we are? But I'm going to start new agents with new context windows to actually do the implementation. You'll see how that works. And we're also going to bring different agents into it. So this is Claude doing all this. And Claude's an absolute great planner. And I usually do my planning with Claude. Codex works really nicely too. But when we get to the implementing, the Kimi K2 and Codex also do a great job. And the important thing is that they review each other and that you use the Spec Kitty review step as an opportunity to look at the work that's been done with using a different model than what implemented it. So if you're using Codex and Claude, then have Claude implement and Codex review. I would usually do it that way. Codex is a more pedantic reviewer, and Claude is a better problem solver. Kimi K2, I don't quite trust it yet. It gets a little more confused a little bit more easily. I think I'm only going to use it for review. So I might do Codex implementing and Kimi K2 reviewing. The problem with that is that Codex is slow. You wait forever for it to implement. Like after it's done its final thing and it just has to get commit what it's doing, it still does 17 tool calls of different Git calls, different Git commands, just committing the changes. It's very frustrating how slow Codex is, but it's very pedantic and very thorough, and its code usually works well. So drawbacks, advantages, you got to take it. But having them review each other works out nicely. Oh, okay. So this is another thing that Claude likes to do. It likes to run. It likes to run the show. At the part when we would have finished the planning. So now here's the plan. I haven't even reviewed it yet. It's already going into the research phase. Now, the plan here is quite extensive. We had a long conversation about it. Let's just scan it while it's doing its research to see if it fits. So the sources code is there. Recognizer. Yes. Okay. Those are the planning decisions. That's everything we just talked about. Yeah, we're going to have some big data sets. Yeah. Okay. I mean, some of these targets are simply, they're bullshit. If it's 6 seconds, I'm not going to care. But it's good it sets some expectations, and then if it it's wildly beyond that. If it's taking 5 minutes to hash a 100 megabyte data set, then we know something's wrong. And this helps also the LLM know later if something's wrong about this. Uh-huh. No fallback. Okay, this is from the Constitution. Yeah. Okay, that's right. And then it's planned the source code trees, their structures. And this is really good because later LLMs will read this plan and see where to look for things, and they spend a lot less time looking around for things. Okay, now this is the research and unknowns that is happening in the background as it's actually researching these things. And it's going to make the research file that we'll see in this dashboard. And then it's just made it into phases, and this is yeah, the data model facts are cool, but they're not meant to be here. They're meant to actually be their own files. Yeah, and yeah, that's the next. So what I'm missing here, what I was hoping. Oh no, that comes in the tasks, the parallelization possibilities. One of the things that I like to do is to see if there are things that can be done in parallel. In this case, I bet there aren't, unless we have to change some things in the privacy Rust code base. In this case, I'm guessing it's going to have to be sequential, but in a lot of tasks, especially in research missions, research can be done in parallel, meaning I can start 5 codexes, all doing a different work product, which we're going to get to, and they can do it. Okay, the research is being done. Looks complete. I'm not going to read this. This is helpful for the LLM, but unless I wanted to learn this stuff on the call, which I'm going to spare you, I'm not going to read it. But there's evidence of the research. With a source register with all of the URLs that were studied to do that research. And I find this super useful. So if I want to know where we learned our understanding about committing Git hashes, it's here. And here's the official WASM-Pack user guide if I need that. The contracts, they're not done yet. We'll get to those when they're done. The data model is done. And this is really quite useful when I want, as a developer, to understand myself how things are going to be set up. Like, this is very important. The manifest is very important to this project. So understanding that's going to be important to me. And I could audit all this, but this is already a long video. On with it and go to the task phase. Okay, to create phase 1, you need to create 3 more artifacts. I know. Finish that so we can move on to tasks. Yeah, I had to build the contracts. These are the API contracts, basically, that the software has to adhere to, like interfaces and API signatures. It's important. I won't skip this bit. Quick start, I'm a little less enamored with. It's also a concept that came from Spec Kitty. It's from the user point of view, how I'm going to use this software. Like, it's actually literally my how-to or README for using the software that we haven't even started building for real yet. And I let it build it, but I have literally never used it. That might be another thing that I prune out of this as unneeded, making it a slimmer version of Spec Kitty with more features, if that makes sense. I'm glad you've watched so long, says I to an audience of 0 people watching live. If you're watching this moment after I recorded this sometime in the future, thank you for watching so far. The fun part is actually when we get to the tasks and the implementation. So the setup is very important in determining the success. So don't skip any of these steps that I've taken. Really put your heart into them. But the fun happens once it's all planned and the tasks and the project plan are all done and you get to the implementation Kanban board, which I can hardly wait to show you. Another thing that I haven't shown you is the diagnostics. It's very simple here because this is the first feature we've done in this project. I'm not at all sure that is set up right. It says 0 for everything. Let's come back to that after the tasks and everything are done. I'm going to note that for a detail bug to see if these diagnostics make sense for this phase of the project. I'm thinking they don't, but it is useful later in the project to make sure, especially if you've got multiple features, to know the health state of your environment, your Spec Kitty environment, etc. All right. Oh, wait, looking here. Oh, we can start the tasks. Yay, hallelujah. Spec Kitty tasks. And this is something that just runs itself. We're past the point where Claude needs any input. What it's going to do now is going to take this plan, it's going to break it down into steps. It's going to make checklists for all of the steps into work packages, analyze the work packages to see if there's the possibility for parallelization. And once it's done all that, it's going to write actual prompts, assuming a clean context for agents who do the implementation. And this is one of the innovations that I've brought to Spec Kitty over Spec Kit. This goes beyond what Spec Kit did. Spec Kit wrote this tasks file, which we're going to see appear in a minute or two. And the agents were all expected to update it and check the boxes and take their marching orders from it. That didn't really work well when I was using Spec Kit. So I built in what I usually had been doing, which was to ask an LLM that had the context of the plan and the specification to write a prompt for an agent to implement one feature. And the prompt should include listings of all of the files and the context that were needed to succeed in implementing that task, so that the new agent would build its own context by reading the right files and then start implementing. And that's what Claude's going to do for us here. And you can see it's got 10 work packages planned. Yeah. It's going to create the tasks.md, which is the big, long file where it's all described in one go. And then the prompt files are the files that are written for each agent doing one of these work packages. So like WP8 here, the build command integration, it'll look at these 5 tasks that it needs to do and think, what context will an LLM need to come in, be assigned this work package, and instantly successfully start implementing it without having to waste time reading too much or looking around on its own and possibly miss important things. And this has been really a critical part of Spec Kitty's success in my own workflow, is doing this up front. Basically, after this step is done, I basically let agents implement and review and accept the review or accept the changes or reject them, in which case we repeat the cycle until everything's done. And there are a couple steps after that that we'll talk about when we get to the done point, which for those of you who are wondering, is probably still an hour or more away, given the size of this feature. So thank you for watching. I'm going to keep streaming until we're done. And I'm going to use the stream later to make a more concise video or set of videos where I explain individual aspects of this for smaller attention span consumption. Aha, I want to point something out. This verbiage here, I stopped it, you notice. Claude Code, probably in reaction to tons of people complaining about token usage and cost, and also to help people not max out their context window, but to like refresh and start new sessions. Claude Code starts saying things like, given space constraints or given token usage constraints. This is a red flag. This means Claude's now going to do a shittier job doing its work than it would have otherwise. I'm going to run the context tool and see what we're looking like and see if we're really that close to the end, if we're like 60 or 80% to the end of the 1 million token context window. We're not. It's all free space. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to say, Claude, we have unlimited space, unlimited tokens, and you are free to ultra think. I like the way you made the colors like that. I'm not sure that prompt word does anything in the end, but the creation of the prompt files, because it's literally the most important task. Hopefully that course corrects Claude from only creating concise prompts, which means, I mean, concise is good, but concise also means skimping on detail and precision. And you can't convince me otherwise in this case. So I'm trying to course correct Claude while Claude is creating the prompt files. If it's creating the prompt files, it means that, yes, the tasks are already done. So this is organized by work package, project setup, build configuration, hash computation module, code generation, WAS and build orchestration, artifact caching, inspect, what is that? Content addressable artifact storage and retrieval by hash. Okay. Okay, that I think is right. Inspect command priority. Enable inspection of build artifacts, yeah. Build command integration. So these are all the work packages. It builds an index of all of the tasks. With the work package, their priorities, and can they be parallel? And a lot of them are saying yes, and that's very exciting for this. However, I don't see a specific parallelization plan here. I'm going to ask Claude to add that. And has it done the tasks, the prompts rather? It's building them. It's on number 2. And if I go back as that it's stopped, I'm going to kick it. No, it's still doing them. Okay. Well, this means as soon as you have the work package prompts in your Kanban, you can start. So what I'm going to do now is the fun part. We're going to get somebody else working on this, Privacy Compiler. And this gives me a chance to talk about Codex. So wait, well, that was silly. We've got this Codex directory. And inside of it, it's got the prompts, which is the same set of files that are in Claude and in Opencode, etc. I'm going to think about how we can maybe better manage these. But this is where they are now. And for Codex to find those, Codex is the only one that works like this. Codex needs export Codex home, and that should be equal to this directory. Now, I gave it a path relative to my home directory instead of saying ./.codex. Right? Because when, oh, actually, I'm doing this wrong. Copy that. Because sometimes it moves around a bit and it doesn't, then it loses track of where it is if you use like the dot notation, like that. If it goes into its work tree, it literally looks then in the work tree. And this notation, it'll look relative to your home directory. That's what I was trying to express. But it reminds me, we actually need to go into the work tree, into the feature that we're doing for this to work best. So we're going to export that. And then when I say Codex, I'm going to grab this guy. This is the dangerously skip permissions of Codex, but they made it ridiculously long so that nobody would try and type it. So I just copy and paste it. When we start that, because the Codex home, like the Codex dot directory is not the one in my actual home directory, I need to re-authenticate. If that made any sense to anybody, I hope so. So I just have to authenticate on ChatGPT, OpenAI for Codex to work. I'm signed in, and you can see Claude is busy writing these things, and we are going to say, oh, introducing our 5.1 models, yay. We're going to say implement as a slash command. And it's going to, if you leave this shell PID, this is some weird thing with Codex. I don't understand why it's there or what I need to do about it, but just leave it as it is. And it's going to take, hopefully, the first one and move it into doing and start doing it. At which point, when it's done, it'll move it to review, and then I can go and start another agent to review it. Now, while that's doing that, I'm going to come back here. Claude's still working. We need to wait for Claude to get done with all 10 of these before I ask Claude for the parallelization plan. Because I saw that a lot can be done in parallel, and I want to do it in parallel. It goes much quicker. And, well, right, I told Claude to take its time and alter think. I'm glad it's really doing it. Let's watch Codex. Oh, blocked immediately. What's going on here? The mission software. This has come up a couple times. And I think this is a bug in Spec Kitty in the logic about let's see here. We need to understand what they're saying here. So this is a little bit stupid. So we've got Kitty with missions. Oh, the missions is empty. This looks actually like a bug in the init script. Now the active mission is here, but the actual missions are missing. Oh, great. So this is really quite silly. That, of course, when that got copied, then it didn't copy the empty directory. So we're going to fix this manually, and then I'm going to fix it in the software missions. And then what we need is we need to go to actually the Spec Kitty source code and find where the missions are in reality. Yeah, and we're going to copy the software dev mission, and we're going to put it in there. Wow, that's really bad that these things would be missing. But I'm a little skeptical about the whole requirement. And I need to go look at the software to make sure it's actually working. We're going to tell it to do again. And hopefully, look again. So that it runs a prerequisite script, which is nice because when it's working right, then it, has 16 checks that have to pass before the agent's allowed to actually do their work. Because there's apparently a bug in the software, and then this missions directory doesn't get copied properly, it stopped. And my question after this call, after this video, is going to be, is the requirement valid? Does this missions have to be there? Because this was actually relevant way earlier in the process and not relevant to this agent's running. Or should I fix the bug that doesn't copy the missions? So nobody here has to answer that question. Nobody knows that. Not even me at this point, but I will figure it out and fix it and make a new release after this video. All right. Codex is still getting set up, and it's moving its task into the doing directory. It's now there now. We can see, meanwhile, Claude is still building all of the prompt files for individual work packages. As you can see, they are not skimpy. They're not concise. They're absolutely detail-packed, which is what I like. And it's got 3 more to go before I can ask it about the parallelization plan to see how many other agents we can start. Now I'm seeing another weirdness that it's copied this into doing, but it's left a copy back here. Let's see if Codex is dealing with that. And I mentioned something about Codex and Git earlier. Codex is absolutely like what other entities and humans and aliens do in what Git command. Codex uses 10. So it used 6 Git commands, 7 Git commands, 8 Git commands to move this file into doing. This is not a Spec Kitty problem. This is a Codex problem. And if you're going to use Codex for implementation or for the Spec Kitty work, you're going to live with that weirdness of Codex until Sam Altman, who's probably watching my stream at this moment, makes his nice engineers change it. All right, let's see if Claude's still going. Claude's still going. Claude's getting quite slow. This task's been going for 12 minutes. Just finished the 8th. So there are 2 more. And then we can ask it about the parallelization. Okay, P indicates the subtask can be processed in parallel. Gosh, that's not how I wanted it. Oh, wait. Dependency execution summary. It's here. Sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 can be parallel with 8 and then 10. Oh, gosh. There aren't any that can be done in parallel. So I suggest, okay, but why? So this means, yes, they can be done in parallel within the work package. Well, I'm going to criticize Claude and say that this table makes no sense in terms of the parallel column. This is what I was looking for, is the sequence. Now, sometimes it's a very straightforward sequence. It's just a chain. There's no this makes sense that there's nothing parallel. I mean, what can you build in a compiler that doesn't build on the thing, or it's not a compiler. It's a CLI that compiles a code base in a specific way. But what can you build in that type of CLI that doesn't build on the step before it? So that makes sense that you can't do this in parallel. So that was a false expectation that I imparted on you. I'm sorry for that. And now we can see Claude's got one more to do. I thought there were 10 that it described. And if not, then we're going to check in on Codex. And Codex is busy doing things. So I'm going to say that this is not, I'm not going to live stream everything from here on out. This is going to be super boring if I do. I'm going to run out of things to say. I'm going to have to sing songs. You don't want that. I don't want that. Nobody, YouTube doesn't want that. So to prevent me from having to do that to you and to everybody else, I'm going to probably stop the live stream soon and explain what happens. Yeah, maybe I'll wait until we get through a whole review process, and then I can have Opencode do the and Kimi 2 do the review. And then I'll have used 3 models like I promised. Oh, I should have mentioned singing. Now I'm inspired to sing to you. Yeah, well, you can sit here and you can try and understand what it's doing. Oh, it's it's literally doing a hello world. Look at that. It's literally doing a hello world in Rust, only it decided that wasn't sophisticated enough. So it's doing a hello privacy compiler CLI scaffolding ready. I'm going to complain. I'm going to complain to Claude. Please review the entire set of documents and find and replace it with compiler. Add to the constitution that the name of our project is Priivacy compiler, and that agents should never deviate from the spelling. Okay, this is important. Like, it's spelling the name of the project wrong. Our branding is privacy with 2 I's because of PII. You love it or leave it. I'm not going to talk about our branding right now, but it has to be privacy with 2 I's everywhere, and not complier, but compiler. I have to spell it right too. And if I don't get it to do it right, and if I don't do it right myself, it's going to be wrong everywhere. And that literally causes horrifying problems later. I don't even know what they might be. but I can see him coming. So it should start grepping and setting and awking now. I hope. I'm going to mention this. Our project's name is Privacy Compiler, not Privacy Compiler. Note the difference and fix any instances of that. Okay, and the way that works in Codex is eventually it will see that, and eventually it will do that, and it's just kind of here waiting to get in the front door and move above the current working project. Oh, and look, we've got our first case of Claude's scroll window bug. That happens when it starts subtask, here's a subtask, here's a subtask, and the subtasks are all running at the same time and updating, and the shell can't handle where to focus. So it focuses between all of them all at once, and it induces all sorts of interesting mental conditions. And look, see how many times this was wrong in there, even though I had mentioned it already. This is super important that I caught that, or it was going to be private with one eye until the end of time, and we'd be finding instances of that in 10 years. Now it's updating the Constitution. That's good, because then other agents will read that, because they read the Constitution when they start, as should presidents of the United States. How are we doing here? We're doing Git stuff in Codex. Who would have guessed? I don't want an older version of feature flag. Codex is pretty good at explaining its thinking, and I like reading its thought process. Oh, there's a dependency problem. Fun. It's patching a crate. I'm not sure I like that. Okay, 1. Our project's name is Privacy Compiler. 2. I'm not sure patching a crate is a viable solution. Brainstorm other solutions and do internet research, and also consider using newer versions to see if that solves the dependency problem. Do not like the idea of patching a crate. How are we going to make sure that crate gets patched every time we rebuild this and update, and then when it doesn't, the whole thing doesn't work and nobody knows why? This is a really bad idea. And it's already said that it's completed its implementation and moved it for review. Let's see what we do here. So this is a little bit of a workflow anomaly. I don't usually admonish an agent to reconsider their work after they've considered it done and moved it to the next lane, but I think I think that this needs to be fixed. Otherwise, we're going to go through the entire review and they're going to catch this point number one about the privacy compiler because it's now in the Constitution. And number two, the next reviewing agent is going to not question that decision, because that decision about patching the crate for a dependency resolution was not addressed in the specification and the prompt. That came up during implementation. And okay, execute remaining upgrading tool chain. I'm planning to revert the pinned dependency versions, upgrade the Rust tool chain to 1.8.2, and rebuild to confirm compatibility without custom patches. Yes, look for a newer version. Alongside, I'll thoroughly rename all instances of Privacy Compiler to Privacy Compiler across code and documentation, and move the work package back to doing to continue development with the updated instructions. Good job, Codex. Thank you. And it used this Spec Kitty script to move the lane. So there we are. Done. And Claude, in the meantime, is done with all of its tasks, which unfortunately can't be parallelized. So anyway, I was going to tell you what happens next. This will go to review. I'm going to open up Opencode with Kimi K2 to start the review process on that, while I start a new Claude session to implement WPO2. So while the implementation can't be running in parallel, I can have a review happening at the same time as implementation. And oftentimes the review will send it back to planned, at which point I can open up another agent to work on the revisions that are needed following the review. So it will end up that we have 2 or 3 in doing, 2 or 3 in review, and then more and more in done until everything's done. And I predict this is going to take a few hours. So I don't think you're going to watch the whole thing anymore. I think that we're going to end fairly soon with the live cast, after you've seen Kimi K2 and Opencode in action, and then you have to suppose the rest takes place. Let's see what this looks like now. Is that okay? That's definitely broken. Oh, well, the mission file integrity. Now that's interesting. Remember, we had a mission file integrity problem in that the mission files were missing and the agent wouldn't start. And I had to copy and paste them in there to overcome what's currently a software bug, making Spec Kitty completely unusable. I think this should also have flagged that. I think that this diagnostic should have flagged that if those were 0, then there's a critical step that's been missed, and should have flagged that. So that's another thing on my to-do list to fix about the software. Okay, I'm weighing different ways to handle the Rust version mismatch caused by this adapter needing that, or swap problematic crates. Okay. Upgrading seems like the most straightforward. You said you were going to do it. It's doing that. Oh, that's a big upgrade too. Look at that. I'm really glad I asked for that. I should have questioned the I don't know if anybody else saw it, but I saw it and I didn't question it. There was a statement in the planning about what Rust version to use. And now I see that there was quite an outdated Rust version. And Codex was thinking about even regressing further back into history with the version. Whereas to me, it seems much more natural to go to a more up-to-date version, which turns out to be right. It's a 1.8 version instead of 1.7 version. So hopefully it's better. And they're going up even one more. just to resolve these crate conflicts. Man, dependency management is the bane of software development. And I don't care what language you're using or what. What is Clippy even? Let's go ask. Let's ask Claude. What is Clippy in this? I mean, Rust FMT sounds like Rust file mount or something fairly important. But Clippy sounds like maybe we're pulling a feature or two from it and we don't. Oh, it's the official linter. Well, I definitely want that. So one thing that I do from time to time is I show one LLM what's going on over here. What is Codex agent struggling with, and do you agree with their approach? So I'm just showing this Claude, which has more context overall, both available with the 1 million, and since it wrote the specification, it knows more. I'm asking it as the wise LLM in the room, if that's the right approach, or if there's advice that I should be giving to Codex about how to do this. And I do this quite frequently in this process. This isn't part of Spec Kitty. This is just how I do things, because I find that this Claude knows the most about the project right now. So what Codex did, had a conflict between these two things. These were the things it could do. Those are the decisions it made. Claude agrees. One issue, documentation out of sync. All planning docs I created say Rust 1.7.5, but implementation uses 1.8.3. Okay, I'm going to have Claude do this. Yes, update docs. And it seems like Codex is doing the right thing. So I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to wait till it gets done. Codex, meanwhile, is once again running multiple Git things, but it's in the review lane. Yay. That means we can do the fun thing. We can get our third agent involved. CD code privacy compiler. And we're going to go straight to the work trees. And then we're going to start Opencode. It's like Claude Code, except it's open. And it's using the Kimi K2 thinking model. And I should have all of the slash commands because we put them in there when we did the Spec Kitty init. Now we're going to do Spec Kitty review. And we're going to see how Opencode handles the review process. Meanwhile, while we do that, I didn't mean to do exactly what I just did. We're going to come back to Codex. Codex is saying we should update the documents, but that's being handled. So I'm going to say new, and then I'm going to say implement. So what just happened? I killed this entire session from implementing Codex. I wiped it from the context, and Codex is starting again with 100% free context, and it's now going to look for the next thing to implement. And meanwhile, Kimi over here, I'm just gonna make sure it's doing the right thing. It's checking the prerequisites. Everything looks correct. So it needs to read everything it needs to read to know what to do. Yeah, it's now doing the review. So both of these guys are doing the thing that they're supposed to do. And this will soon move here. because Codex will be doing it. And this will soon either move here or back to planned. And I will continue monitoring primarily the implementing agent. So I will primarily be looking at Codex here and reading its thoughts. It hasn't shown me any thoughts yet. There's one. I'm figuring out how untracked directories, including an entire spec, are preventing the script from running. I'm going to tell Claude to fix that. Can you stage and commit stuff in the work tree that might have gotten missed? Here's what poor agent is running into. I'm going to share Codex's thought process again. Then Claude's much faster using Git. The requirement that Codex is running into is a Spec Kitty absolute requirement that there are no unstaged, uncommitted files in the work tree upon beginning the work, which is a problematic requirement that needs thinking into, and I welcome any people's thoughts on that. That came, I believe, from Spec Kit, but I'm not even sure if I might have asked for that at some point. But it causes some problems, but it's also good practice. So here we are. It's good practice, but it causes problems. What do we do? Got to find a better way. I think that the answer might lie in something that I saw Reuven Cohen posting about. He's using Google's Jujutsu package, which is, I guess, version control management that's compatible with Git, but works differently than Git and has far fewer problems when multiple agents are working in a shared directory. So that's on my research list. If you have Jujutsu experience, whether from Reuven's package or in general, let me know what you think of that. And I'll be considering that for future versions of Spec Kitty. But for now, we're just having Claude look at the Git status and clean things up. Let's see. Codex is probably also, Codex is now is fine. So Codex is happy and is in the planning phases for doing the implementation of WPO2. And meanwhile, Kimi has decided that WPO1 is approved. Yay! And look at that. Isn't that a great moment to end the webcast? We've done the entire specification planning tasks phase. We've built our research, our contracts, our data model, and we've moved an entire card from planned through doing, through review to done. And you now can quite easily imagine how it's going to work. One thing that I don't like is that it says Codex did this, but it doesn't say that Kimi reviewed it. Codex, yeah, somehow that's missed. So I'm just gonna, I know it's a little anticlimactic for me to say that I'm ending the webcast and then go do something, but you might be curious. The prompt file doesn't mention your work. Is this because you were not prompted to add yourself to the front matter or the activity log? Or did you forget? Help me understand if I need to improve the prompt. My intention is that there is a record of your activity in the prompt file. So I always ask the LLMs, to advise me on how to make things better for them, because they know. The user's asking why the prompt file doesn't show my recent activity. Looking at the prompt file, yeah, and the activity log shows all of that. Codex, it says Codex. The issue is that when I moved the task to done lane using the helper script, it added an entry to activity log, but it used Codex as the agent. Aha, see, this is a bug. It's identified a bug in Spec Kitty. It used the original shell PID instead of mine. It didn't update the front matter fields. Okay. Now, one thing about Opencode that you're going to notice is that if I highlight this, first of all, it's hard to select everything. And then when I let go, usually what happens is I let go and then I press Command C to copy. But when I let go, the highlight goes away. And it took me a long time to see this up in the corner, copied to clipboard. They press Command C for me. And anytime I highlight something in Opencode, it takes over the computer user experience, which I am in disagreement with. I don't think that's quite right. I see how somebody might have wanted that, but to push on everybody is a little bit cheeky. But now you know. If you're using Opencode, look for the copy to clipboard if you're having a hard time copying for copy and paste. So what am I going to do with that? I'm going to go to Spec Kitty. I'm going to say, review this situation. Tell me what you think. Is this a problem worth solving? And how would you solve it? So that's Claude in the Spec Kitty code base, and it's going to analyze that, and that will be a bug that is fixed in the next release, hopefully. All right, people, now I'm really ending the thing. Oh, this is now in review. Good. Thank you for watching, and bye.